Thank you for the introduction. So I'm Stephane. How it's work, this one? Yes. So I'm Stephane. I'm in charge about the sales at the domain Henri Giraud. My background, I'm working in the wine industry for, I look like young, but many years. And so I will present the domain Henri Giraud. The domain Henri Giraud, we are in AI. Alors, domain Henri Giraud, I will explain you the specificity of the domain. It's unique domain because we work with two terroirs. The terroir of AI Grand Cru, which is the center of Champagne, where we produce the wine for more than 2,000 years. And all the village around like Épernay in Old French means after AI. Avenay before AI. So Épernay, AI was the main district to produce the wine before the Champagne. It's called the Vin d'Ailly. It was called the Vin d'Ailly. And we work with another terroir in the forest because we produce all our wines are vinified in oak barrels. And so it's the forest called Argonne. Alors, just explain you AI, we are in Champagne. We are like that. So the specificity of the terroir of AI. AI, this terroir is quite unique because we have a Pinot Noir. Most of the grape variety are the Pinot Noir. It's 90% Pinot Noir, 10% Chardonnay in AI. The Pinot Noir, they're on the slope. The Chardonnay at the bottom of the slope. The Pinot Noir, we have a source exposure in AI. So a lot of richness, a lot of ripeness. At the same time, we have the Marne River, make like a snake at the bottom of the village. And it gives you a lot of freshness. So remember, always during the tasting, you will remember these characteristics. Richness and ripeness due to the source exposure. Due to the Marne River, we have the freshness. The freshness is give you a lot of this, in the nose you have this anise, this mint notes. And the soil, we have 20 centimeters of ground and 200 meters of chalk, pure chalk, which give you a lot of saltiness. Iodine notes, you will find. So those three characteristics are the richness, the freshness, and saltiness. Always. This is the characteristic of the terroir of AI. It's unique in Champagne to have these three. So, Henri Giraud, we are in AI since 1625. In the next 2 years, we will celebrate our 400 years. Now it's running by Emmanuel Giraud, our president. Emmanuel, she is the 13th generation. The cellar master is the brother-in-law of Emmanuel, and Sébastien, and Claude Giraud, who just retired a few months ago now, and is really the guy who drive the domain where he is now. He put the domain at the top because we are considered as one of the top domains in Champagne right now. So it's a boutique. We produce only 350,000 bottles on average. It depends the year. But I will explain you why, because sometimes we use a lot of perpetual reserve. So, but I will come back on that. And thanks to that, we can compensate the nature. So, the Pinot Noir. The Pinot Noir, this is the heart of AI. We are very proud about the Pinot Noir because the Pinot Noir is the king of the, we like to say this is the king of the grapes, especially in Champagne. It's the most difficult grapes to grow every year. So this is the terroir of AI. This is the origin of the Pinot Noir. The Pinot Noir come, just for your information, the Pinot Noir arrived in Champagne at the 16th century, where we had a small ice age. you know, during 40 years, it was at the end of the 16th century, and worldwide, we had, especially in Europe, we had the temperatures go down by 5 degrees. So all the local grapes there can grow. So they have decided to bring the Pinot Noir from Burgundy. And the Pinot Noir arrived in Champagne in the 16th century. And the Chardonnay arrived quite very late in Champagne. The Chardonnay start to be ready. We had some Chardonnay in the past, but the Chardonnay start to be already planted in the beginning of the 20th century. So our vineyard, what I explained you, source exposure, 20 centimeters of soil, 200 meters of chalk. The purest chalk give the saltiness, the iodine, the Marne River, the freshness. So we are in Ailly. Ailly, it's a Grand Cru village, one of the 17 Grand Cru village. You know, in Champagne, you have 332 villages where we are able to produce champagne. And you have 41 or 42 Premier Cru, and you have only 17 Grand Cru. And Ailly is one of the rare Grand Cru where we are able to produce 2 grape varieties, which are Grand Cru. So Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Both of them are Grand Cru. So this is the terroir of Ailly. You can see the different plots and where you have the different pure chalk and the different vineyard. And always in Champagne, you have the forest on the top of the hill. Because when you have the forest on the top of the hill, it gives you a lot for the soil. You will have a lot of iron oxide. And thanks to that, you will have the fruitiness in the Pinot Noir. So it's considered as a UNESCO World Heritage for the last 10 years, no, nearly 10 years. Sorry. Okay. So I explained you that we are working with 2 terroirs. Ailly, which is the chalk, and another terroir, the Argonne forest. The Argonne forest is 70 kilometers on northeast of Champagne. And in this forest, the specificity is the soil. It's unique in the world. You have only 2 places in the world where you can find this soil. You have in Argonne and you have in Central Asia. The soil called the gaze, not the glaze, but the gaze. So it's a very poor soil. The result is a poor soil. So the oak trees are growing up very slowly. If I take another forest, we came, I checked my notes, but we came 10 years ago in Hungary to check some forest and to check some oak trees, because you know that it's very difficult to find a nice terroir for the oak trees. Here, it was perfect. You had some very nice oak trees, but the soil is quite rich. So it means that when you have the soil which is rich, the oak trees is growing up very quickly. So everybody knows how to make a barrels, you know. We have to cut the trees, we have to cut the staves, and after that, we dry the wood for 3 to 5 years. And after that, we have to make the barrels, and after we have to toast the barrel. And when we toast the barrel, you can imagine if the oak trees is growing up very quickly. An oak tree to make the staves is like that. So when you toast your barrels, you will have a big grain. So you will have a lot of oak taste. And in Champagne, the wine, as we are very on the limit, on the northern part, this is the limit of the cultivation of the vines. So our wine are very delicate. And you could not give an oak taste to the wine. It's not the idea. So it's for this reason we want a very poor soil. What we saw here, it was perfect, the trees, but not adapted for the delicate wine, because it's very sensitive. It could be very good if you want to give an oak taste to the wine. Do you understand? If you have questions, feel free. So it's for this reason, for example, in Burgundy, in Burgundy, when you make the wines, or in Bordeaux, you don't, in France, we can't use the argon because they have no interest. Because you can use as a container, but not as to give an oak taste to the wine. So it's the same when you have a piece of beef. When you have a piece of beef, you could have a piece of beef you can cook on a barbecue, or you can cook at the oven at low temperature for 2 or 3 hours. For us, it's exactly the same. When we make a barrel, we cook at very low temperature, we toast at very low temperature, but during nearly 2 hours. So the idea is to give, in the oak trees, is to give the suppleness on the tannins of the wood. You have the tannins of the wood, and we have, you know, in a barrels, you have your barrels, the wood absorbs 15 to 20 liters of wine. Absorb. So you have 15 to 20 liters in the wood, which will be in contact with the tannins of the wood. The tannins of the wood, for us, what we want is just to make the tannins very supple. So the idea for us to vinify in oak barrels is to give more suppleness to the wine. And again, when we give more suppleness to the wine, we will amplify the characteristic of our terroir, which is the richness, the freshness, and the saltiness. We are not here to give an oak taste to the wine, just to amplify, again, the characteristic of the terroir of Haï. Is it clear for you? Okay. So we work with the chalk and the gaze. The difference, you can see the chalk is 75 million years, gaze is 110 million years. So argon, this is the historical forest of Champagne. You know, in the 50s, before the industrialization of Champagne, we were producing in Champagne around 50 million bottles in 1950. In 1970, we were producing 170 million. So during this time, they need to find another way. Before the Second World War, before the 50s, we had 150 cooperage in Champagne, in an argon forest. Now you have 0. Even for us, we cut the trees, we collect the trees, we dry, but we use 3 cooperage. And after we dry the toasting we do by ourselves. We all do the toasting by our own. Okay, this is the argon. So this is the difference in the argon. So in the forest of argon, we have identified 10 different terroirs. Alors, I will go, where is because in Champagne, in the argon, you have a different hill, different things, and it will give you, we have a choice about 10 different terroirs. And we know that the specificity of the domain is unique in a wine world to use this. Why? Because the 10 terroirs in the forest, we know that if we make a barrel from this terroir or from this plot or from this plot in the forest, it doesn't give you the same taste. One terroir called Châtrice, one plot called Châtrice. If we make a barrel from Châtrice, it will give you a lot of freshness, a lot of sharpness, high acidity on the wine. If I use another plot called La Chalade, it will give you a lot of roundness. So you can imagine, when you have a warm year, we will use much more Châtrice, just to give more punch to the wine, more acidity. After, this is the talent of the winemaker to blend the different barrels. We have more than 2,000 barrels at the domain, so thanks to that. For this year, for example, we order, because we will start the harvest in 10 days now. And so usually, we know the aromatic profile of the harvest, and we know around our different vineyards, our different plots, we know that it was quite a warm year this year, especially a warm spring. So what we do, we will order around 40% of chartreuse, just to give more punch, especially some plot where we know that we have a lot of ripeness. And we will make different barrels. So at the end, we work with 10 different plots. And so we work with 10 different plots. We have 10 styles of wine. So thanks to that, with the same wine, we can make different things. And now we go further than that, because right now we have identified for the last 5 years, you know, when you cut the trees, if you cut at the bottom, we make the different layers in a wine, in the trees, and we make the barrels from the level 1, level 2, 3, 4. And we know that closer you are from the soil, more you have the effect of the terroir. So it means that if I use chartreuse for level 1, I can tell you a lot of sharpness. Level 4, you have much more elegance. And also, it's so precise. You can imagine if one day you come to visit us, you will see also we use some wine globe. You know the wine globe, it's in a glass. It's 228 liters, the same as a barrel. Why we use the wine globe? It's for us, it's just the reference. It's natural, because the wine glass, we don't have any impact of the wood. So always for the winemaker, taste what is the real year, what is the real from the vintage, and thanks to that, he can use to blend it and to see what is the result, what is the impact of the wood, of the barrels. Also, when I said we vinified, we don't vinify 100% in oak barrels, we vinified around 90% in oak barrels, but we vinified everything in a small containers, because we use the amphoras also. We use the amphoras, because one part when we press the juice, when you press the grapes, you have the juice, and one part is not strong enough to be vinified in oak barrels. It's around 10%. So what we do, we vinified in amphora. So the amphora is 500 liters amphora, and so those amphora, they are in a sandstone. They are not in terracotta. The difference between the sandstone and terracotta is when they make the amphora, when they cook the amphora, the sandstone you can cook at 1200 degrees. The terracotta you could not cook more than 800 degrees. So the idea is you don't have any porosity inside. And as it is a perfect egg shape, you have a perpetual movement inside. And with what you have, it's in the spring, usually, you know, always you have your vortex, you have your fine lees, and always the vinification is doing like that. And as it is, you have a gentle change of temperature as it is in stone. It's a sandstone. You have the stone effect. You have a very gentle change of temperature in the spring. And thanks to that, you have its reverse. And the result is the fruitiness. So the Pinot Noir, vinified inside, you have always the richness, the freshness, and the saltiness, plus this fruitiness. And this we use for our cuvée rosé, for our champagne rosé. Why? Because the rosé champagne, what you are looking for, the fruitiness and not the sweetiness. And thanks to that, we don't have an extra dosage or to compensate the bitterness of the champagne. Usually it's what all the champagne houses they do. To make the champagne rosé, they use a lot of, they add an extra dosage. So the dosage usually is 2-3 grams higher than the normal cuvée. For us, it's not the case, because we have this fruitiness. Alors, it's here. Hop là. Alors, so this is the argon. So it's what I explained you about the traceability, the different terroirs. You can see that inside, what I explained to you, that you can see the age of the oak. The billon, this is the level of the trees. Geolocalization, this is in a forest. When has been cut, and one has been made. So you can see for these barrels has been dried for, we dried the stave for 5 years. So where we dry the staves. So Henri Giraud, we are working with around 200 different plots, because you know in Champagne we don't have big plots. Usually, most of the times it's very small plots. And we are working with 200 plots. So with 10 plots in Argonne, thanks to that, we have a choice about 2,000, we have 2,000 possibilities. Shape, okay. And the last point I would like to talk about, it's something very important for us. It's our treasure. Our treasure is the perpetual reserve. The perpetual reserve, do you know what is a perpetual reserve? It's the same as Solera system, but in one tank. So we have the chance to have the Martin River very close from the domain. So our tanks are in the soil, because thanks to that, they are in the bed of the Martin River. And they are at a constant temperature all the year long. They are at 10.5 to 11 degrees all the year long. And thanks to that, so this is tanks in concrete with inside you have some stainless steel. They are square tanks because we don't want to have any movement. So the perpetual reserve, it's every year in those tanks since 1990. We take 20%, 25%, it depends the year. And I will say 20 to 30% maximum. And we will top up by the same amount. So since 1990, every year we take 20%, 20 to 30%, and we top up by the same amount of the new vintage. So in those tanks, you have all the vintages since 1990. So the difference, everybody will ask me, what is the difference? Everybody is talking about reserve wine in Champagne. Reserve wine in Champagne, it's wine from the previous vintage, but only one vintage. Here, the idea is to refresh it. So the perpetual reserve is very fresh. When you taste it, you have the complexity, but you have the freshness. A reserve wine is very complex, but you have the complexity of the old wine. Here is not an old wine. It's really the freshness, which is because we refresh every year. The same as it's quite the same as the Solera system. Now maybe it will be the right time to taste the first wine. Alors, at Henri Giraud, we love the experimentation. Every year, we use around 3% of our wine for experimentation. You can see. So we use 3% of our experimentation. So you can see that all our wines, we are in Champagne. We make some sparkling wine. You know, it's quite unique that a maison will talk about Champagne house. Will talk about wine more than the second fermentation. To make a second fermentation in a bottle is quite easy. And the yeast we're going to use during the second fermentation will be the most neutral yeast to express the wine. The bubbles are just here to carry the taste, of the wine. It's for this reason. Also, you have very fine bubbles. The bubbles, because you have, due to the vinification, you have a higher viscosity on the wine. So this wine is Esprit Nature. So, alors, where is hop là, is this one. So, this one is 80% Pinot Noir, 20% Chardonnay, vinified 100% in oak barrels. And we keep for 2 years only. And you have 1/3 of a perpetual reserve inside. So the perpetual reserve, it's perpetual reserve coming from Alors, for this one, it's a little bit older than the 90s, because before the 90s, we always knew that we had a perpetual reserve, but truly speaking, we already start to record really in the 90s, since now. So we have launched this cuvée because it's a new cuvée. So this one is for the barrels we have used, because now the base vintage is 2020 on this one, and the base vintage is 2020, yes, and so it was a very warm year, 20. So we have used a lot of Chartreuse barrels. So you have a lot of tension in this wine. And always you have this richness, freshness, and saltiness. And one thing, we just launched it, actually we have launched it just before summer, this new cuvée. And this new cuvée, we are quite proud because we got a very high ratings, probably the highest rating from James Suckling is 95 points, so it's very high ratings for non-vintage champagne. And this wine, you have, to run our vineyard, we never communicate that we are organic, because that's, we are running our vineyard on the organic way for the last 30 years, but we never want to communicate because we want to have the free hands. If one year we have to use some pesticide, we can use it. Because sometimes we're in Champagne and some years it could be difficult. And, but you have, on the back label, you have a flash code where you have the molecular analysis of the wine, and we guarantee that we don't have any pesticide in a wine. And for the dosage for this cuvée, actually, we never communicate on that, but this is an extra brut because the dosage is 5 grams. But if one day we need to add more sugar, we will add it. And you remember what I told you about the richness? You can feel the richness, but you have this nice freshness on this one, and the saltiness, you have a nice tension on this. Maybe we can pour the second one. Alors, concerning this wine you are tasting now, also it's called Esprit Nature, but Esprit Nature, it's not a brut nature, it's a tribute to the natural aspect of the wine. Because it's vinified only in oak barrels and no stainless steel. Alors, the second one is Hommage au Pinot Noir. Hommage means tribute to the Pinot Noir. Tribute to the Pinot Noir. Why? Because we don't want to say that it's a Blanc de Noir, because most of the Blanc de Noir are made with the Pinot Meunier. And here it's 100% Pinot Noir. And we really want to say that it's a Pinot Noir dominant. And so this wine, the vinification is the same as the previous one, 100% Pinot Noir, 1/3 of perpetual reserve since 1990. Vinified for, we keep little bit, this wine as a vinification is little bit different from the others because we vinified in oak barrels, the Pinot Noir, we blend with the perpetual reserve, and after we keep for 6 more months in the blending tanks. Why we do like that? Because we love to mature the wine. When you keep to the blending tanks before the bottling and before the second fermentation, why we keep in the blending tanks, it's just to get more the crunchy notes. You know, the characteristic, the yellow fruit, the characteristic of the Pinot Noir, it's what we want. We really want to have this note, these crunchy notes and these characteristics. You have this beautiful, for me, every time when I taste this wine, it reminds me the Pinot Noir just before the harvest, when you go and you crunch in the Pinot Noir. And you eat the Pinot Noir, you can feel this beautiful juice inside. No? It's nice. Thank you. So again, remember always when you taste the wine from Henri, always when you taste not only from us, but you have some different maisons from Henri. That's you have a Bollinger, you have a Ayala, you have a Dutch, you have many Bilcar Salmon is the same, and always the characteristic of Henri, this is this richness. And this freshness, always, and the saltiness. When you taste the clear wines, you know, because when you taste the clear wine in Champagne, you can taste the clear wine about different villages, and always you can recognize the Pinot Noir from Henri, because the Pinot Noir from Henri, this is those characteristics. And you have only in Henri where you can find those three characteristics. Do you have questions? The average about? No, the barrels we average about, the barrels we keep an average about 8 years at the domain. Because we have 2,000 barrels and we order around 300 barrels every year. So we make 300 new oak barrels. So of course, it depends the cuvée. Some cuvées we keep for the first cuvée we had, it's barrels from 4 to 8 vintages. Because and after we have a second-hand market with our barrels because we resell to the spirit producers. Because as we have this know-how, and we are working with Highland Park, Dalmore, and they use, and also some Japanese sake producer and gin producers. Why? Because as we have this know-how, for the cask finish, when you put a whiskey inside our barrels, the barrels will attract the juice. The whiskey will attract the juice has been absorbed by the barrels. And for the cask finish, if they need to put some more punch to the wine, to the whiskey, they will use chartreuse. If they need to have more roundness, they will add la chalade. If they want to have more deepness on the whiskey, they will use Beaulieu, for example, different terroir we have. And thanks to that, this know-how is unique in a wine world to work with the forest like that, because it's an experimentation about. It's more than 40 years Claude Giraud has been working on that. After now it's Sebastian. And he got this passion also for the forest because, to be a winemaker is good, but also you need to know the forest very well. Because to select the trees, to select everything. Another question?
Using new clones
in Champagne? In Champagne, with the global warming, I will say this is we are one of the rare regions where we are not really affected by the global warming. You know, this morning it was 4 degrees, and today it's 14, 15 degrees. So in Champagne, I would say, you know, Champagne during many years, before we had this global warming, we had to harvest usually we had the harvest in October, end of September, beginning of October. During the last few years, we have the harvest beginning of September, and we have much more maturity, much more richness on the wine, which is quite good for us, because, you know, in Champagne, and we will always adapt. In Champagne, as I told you, in the 16th century, when we had the small ice age, where the temperature dropped by 5 degrees, in Champagne, we were adapted to bring the Pinot Noir. Probably one day, if the global warming is going to, we will adapt. We will use new clone. They have some tasting, because, you know, in Champagne, what is the strength of Champagne is the CIBC. It's an organization who controls the Champagne region, and every year everybody is working all together. And in Champagne, this is the strength. It's everybody is very concerned by that, and probably we will. They make some tests on some new clones and some new grape varieties also. We will see, but it's just, I think at the moment we have like 30 hectares or 35 hectares for experimentation in total in all Champagne, different region. Because, you know, Champagne is quite very huge region also, because, you know, it's very close from Paris, and the bottom, the Aube, is near Burgundy. So it's a very long region. All the terroirs are very different. So that's, for example, I think the first part will be very impacted by where we need to use probably new clones will be the Aube, the source of Champagne. Probably, but at the moment we are a little bit much more. The Pinot Noir, you have a nice adaptation. You have, especially in our region, we are a little bit more worried about the Chardonnay, especially in our terroir. On Côte des Blancs, no, but for the Chardonnay in Hailly, Marolles, in Vallée de la Marne, it starts to be a little bit complicated.
Thank you for.
Pleasure. Another question? No? Bon. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you.